Today, I am joined by the Kraken of all Krakens. You know him, we all know him, Wardaddy Chadski. Stick around to learn all about him.
Perfect.
What is up, ladies and
Nice.
gentlemen? Welcome to another interview with a Rise of Kingdoms content creator. And today, I am joined by the one and only Wardaddy Chadski. Say hello.
Hey, what's going on, buddy?
Oh,
You enjoying
man.
yourself?
Am I enjoying myself? I'm always enjoying myself. End of the day, right before the holidays. No better time.
It is. You caught me right in the middle of running a rally, and looks like this player is online. We gave him a bunch of deads just now, but that was so apropos. Like, hey, let's go do a quick interview with Shappy and hang out, and then it was like, oh, we're running a rally. Here we go.
Yeah, I've got your rally up right now. You're absolutely obliterating this guy. Using one of my favorite commanders, as one does, Attila. A man of taste, I see.
Yes. The now he's online, so he's probably going to bubble here. But we dropped him from 134 down to 117. He healed back up to 125, so he's probably going to bubble here in about 30, 45 seconds. So I think he got some caravans. So, I think we're cooking.
Perfect. You guys get a 2-for-1. Not only do you get to learn all about Chadski, but you also get to watch cities get zeroed. So if that's not worth a like, I don't know what is.
It is it's my favorite thing to do, right? The last rally, I don't know if you have the report from the last rally. You can pull that up from what I sent you. But that's typically how it works. Higher power cities, I like to put, a damage dealer in there. And in artifact KVKs, CPO Emilianus is cooking behind Attila. And smaller power cities, you just run the old Attila Takeda and run up the deads. It's great.
Oh yeah. Well, Chadski, some of the folks might not know you here. In theory, they should. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Why should we know you? When did you start on YouTube? Give us a walkthrough.
Well, I grew up actually as an athlete, and went to college and played athletics at college. Played athletics, briefly professionally for a few years, and got into media after that. I did a lot of different TV, radio stuff. I did a lot of publishing, online publishing, different things. I've still got a media company here where I live, and it's more locally based, but do a lot of different things. And it was funny because about 5 years ago, I grew up playing video games. Obviously, I've been a gamer since I was a kid, and more towards a lot of sports games, Madden and NCAA, that kind of stuff that I always played, and NBA 2K and stuff. But when I was growing up on the old Super Nintendo, there was a game called Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I loved it. It was great. Anybody that's ever read those novels, it's all about kind of all the different dynasties in China and how everything worked. You got to know all these great generals and commanders. And that's where all those Chinese commanders come from. XY and Guan Yu and all those different Sun Tzu, and they all come from kind of those novels. And it was funny because when I played that game as a kid, I always remember Guan Yu was like my favorite commander. I loved him. And I'm sitting there watching a YouTube, just watching stuff, whatever. And this ad pops up and I see this Guan Yu thing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that. And so I go look at this game and it's like Rise of Kingdoms. What is this? And I download it, realize it's a city building game. And I'm like, okay, I'll mess around with this. Well, then I start seeing the different commanders, start watching some YouTube videos. I'm like, oh, this could be really cool. And then I kind of started getting hooked and whaled up a little bit before KVK1. And the minute I got into KVK1, never experienced anything like it in my life. Got on Discord, got on voice with a whole bunch of people, and it was the coolest experience I had ever had in any gaming I've ever done. Now I've done, online stuff where you're competing or playing against, or you're playing, Call of Duty or something like that. But it blew my mind how you could get, I think at the time we had like 30 or 40 players on voice, which isn't all that much in big kingdoms nowadays. But in my first KVK, I'm like, what? So what is, I'm on voice with all these people? Like, where are they? Oh, they're in the field here with me. What's going on? Like, how does this work? And it was so cool and so much fun. And I was hooked. I was addicted. I loved it. And from then on, I have been really full throttle. Just love playing the game, having a blast doing it. And it has been, yeah, it has been now a bigger part of my life because of how much I enjoy it and love it. So that's kind of how I got into it.
That's amazing, man. When did you start? What year are we talking?
I think I was in 2020. Let's see. COVID happened in 2020. It was after COVID. So it was in the fall of 2020. I downloaded it in October, and I remembered one of the first coolest events I ever did was the Christmas event in 2020. That's where I kind of got my Santa Chad avatar and city skin, and I always remember, I always love Christmas time because it takes me back to when I first played the game, right? First started it. And that's when it first started for me. So I guess now I'm over, what, 4 years? So 21, 22, 23, 24. So 4 years I've been playing this game, and really over 4 years now. And that's, I haven't stopped. I've never taken a break. Anybody that knows me knows I've played a lot of KVKs, probably 15 of them now, 16, and I am full throttle at every one I play in, and it's really never changed. So.
Oh man. See, you've got a pretty good story, and believe it or not, it sounds like the actual Rise of Kingdoms ads seem to work. I surprised me. For sure.
No, it only worked. Okay, listen, like the corny stuff that they do, I think now I just think it's funny because I think they're actually trying to be funny now. And they were a little more serious back a couple of years ago, but it's the actual, it was actually a kind of just a cool generic B-roll video of an ad, build your kingdom, do this, do that. So it wasn't the acting stuff that we see nowadays. So I saw it, and then I see the Commander Guan Yu pop up, and that's when I was like, oh, I'm all in on that.
So it wasn't some guy flexing on a girl saying how much power he has.
No. I would have deleted that game if I would have saw it. I would have been like, what is this nonsense? Or I'd have thought it was funny and just been like, what are they talking about here? But yeah, no, it was one of the original, just simple and easy, like build your city, save allies, invade cities, use commanders. And it was going through all that thing. And I was just like, oh, that's cool. I like that. All right, let me check that out.
Sounds like they need to hire you for their ads. You've got the voice on lock.
I've got experience doing that nonsense, but yeah, it's always kind of been fun.
So that's awesome. I'm so excited to hear that. Now, a lot of us in the community knew you because you were the guy who would pop in, casually drop like 10 member donations or super chat when no one else has super chatted. And a lot of us knew you from there. And I feel as though you still do that, but you saw that and you're like, you know what, I could do that. And you started your channel. So what's the background as to what inspired you to start the channel? When did you say, you know what, I'm gonna do this?
It was, and I would pop in on streams all the time, on some of the other creators. Of course, I'm kind of a spinoff from Chisgule, if you will, and I always liked supporting the creators, people that are like working their tails off, having fun with the game, having fun content and cool content to do. And I always respected that, and I loved it because I loved the game so much. It was like I wanted the creators to know how appreciated they were. It's almost like the game is like a living, breathing organism. And whether it's streaming stuff or putting up videos, like there's always something to watch or to do. And those of us who play rock and that do this, we know that there's a lot of downtime sometimes. There's a couple of weeks of waiting here or a month of waiting, and you're just doing your daily stuff. But being able to spectate and watch other KVKs or being able to watch videos or new commanders, and the content creators were always the ones that put the hard work in to do that. So I always loved dropping in, saying hi, supporting them monetarily, and that was always kind of my mantra. I do. I've got the wherewithal to do that. And so being able to show those guys and gals how much we appreciate them was always something I wanted to do. And, honestly, it got to a situation to where, I in the media world that I'm in, I'm very versed with YouTube. I know how that works. And I kept thinking to myself, with the spinning I do in this game, there's probably a way that I can kind of use this as business expense if I'm able to show some revenue and do some things. But more importantly, I would always, it wasn't rants, but I would always go on and try to find new things and new ideas, or I would have a take on something and it'd be a pretty, not necessarily provocative, but it'd be, a pretty strong take on something. And I'd go in and talk about it with other creators on their streams, or I would put it up in our Kingdom's Discord or other public Discords, like, hey, here's why it's so hard to use archers in the field, right? And I'll never forget, just some people that I knew really closely, and they were just like, why don't you just do a video about this? Like, you know how to do that, right? And I'm like, yeah. And I did. And immediately the feedback was great. People were just like, Chadski, you've been playing forever. This is great. This is so much better than going and trying to read one of your novels that you write in some of these public forums. And so I was like, okay, so it started getting some traction. And then I realized real quick, a lot of people started subscribing, and I created a Discord, and people were joining the Discord. And it was really something, I've run Kingdoms for years, and I love the community aspect of the game. And being able to do my own Discord that's kind of centered around the content that I put out, it was great to kind of build a community, because all these different public Discords have their different genre, right? There's the meme Discord, there's the Archer's Den, there's infantry Discords, there's Octagon, there's all these different ones that are just they get their own personalities. And I was like, if I create my own Discord, I keep it positive, and kind of set the rules in place to where we really want players to enjoy themselves. And it's honestly a place for new players, because the one thing I hate in this game, and I used to get onto people when I would lead Kingdoms, people that were trying their best to learn how to play the game, and they're asking questions, and sometimes they're rhetorical, mundane questions. Like, if you've been playing the game at all, you know the answer to this question. Why are you asking this? But I didn't like the way they were treated, because it's almost like everybody's lost their mind. Everybody that has played the game for 6 months or a year or more, like they're an expert, and they got to be rude, and they got to be mean to people who are starting it brand new. And I'm like, do you guys know where you came from? Do you know that you were in the same situation? Why do you got a big time everybody? I mean, and so I always had like a bleeding heart for new players. And I would take the time to talk to them, and hey, you're in KVK1, Sun Tzu, go get him, man. Go get him and see if you can get Charles Martel unlocked. Go run that march, and I was always trying to help them, because I remembered very vividly what it was like for me to first start playing the game. And I had really cool people around me that knew I loved it, and they knew I was smart enough to understand it, and they just taught me. And for instance, we're in KVK1, and I'm swarming down a flag, and my troops are gone. And I was like, where did my troops go? They're not in my hospital. And they were like, well, they're dead. I'm like, wait a minute. What do you mean they're dead? They were like, well, you don't get them back. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? And so I was that new, and I was a noob doing it. And so I know what that feels like. And so, like, getting back to the community that I think I've been able to create, and the community I love in the Discords that I'm in, those communities that really help young players, or are really just a positive influence in a community. Those are the communities I like to be a part of, and that's what I've built. And we've got some drab humor here and there, but at the same time, it's not toxic. The first time somebody tries to twist off on somebody for being a noob, or making a mistake, or asking a very elementary question, I'll bounce them out of the Discord. Like, we just don't put up with that. Like, don't try to big time anybody here. Check your ego at the door and help out these young players, because they're the lifeblood of the game. They're the future of the game. So you have to understand how the game works. You have to understand how the community works. And if you're one of those retread old players that's just disgruntled and you hate the game, then just get out, man. Don't get on Discord and talk trash to people, and because everybody's so sick of those people. And so that was really why I wanted to kind of develop the community the way it is. So,
can I just say, we need more people like you? Like, I think Rise of Kingdoms has gotten so jaded, and I agree. There are people, even in my comments sometimes, who are like, Shappy, you moron. Don't you know that this is the way? I'm like, I'm doing my best over here, guys. I'm trying to help. And people just rip into you. And it's rough. And I have to say, I've been playing since 2019, so even longer than you, which is disturbing.
Yep.
But
crazy. That's crazy.
but I just started playing Age of Empires Mobile for the first time. And this is a Rise of Kingdoms video. Don't click away, Rise of Kingdoms people. But I'm at that like noob stage where I'm like, I don't know which commanders to put with who. I don't know what skills to use. Like, I need someone to please rescue me.
Yes. And ask for help. And and that's part of it. I was in a kingdom that was a massive fighting kingdom, one of the most high end, reputable fighting kingdoms. Like they were suicide guys, and it was 1254. I mean, it was massive, but it was on the tail end, right? And leadership was retiring, and people were retiring. Well, it got to a point, and the game mechanics didn't help because we kept getting no match found. We were too big, and people like hated the game. Like the atmosphere there was just it was awful. Like people just hated playing it. They all wanted to quit. They were just, I mean, I'm just sitting there like, okay, well, I love this game, and I was 2 years into it, and I was hammering it and having fun with it. And my alt was playing a KVK in 2293 while we were getting no match found with my main. And I played this KVK. We're playing against 1875. We're playing against, other kingdoms, and everybody's loving it. And everybody is all in and having fun, and they're recruiting one another. And I was just like, what is this bubble I've been living in where everybody just is miserable? They're all old players and they're all miserable. They all know everything, and they're just miserable people. Meanwhile, I come over here to this other KVK and everybody's having a blast. Like, who knew this game was still fun? And so that's, that's part of the community that you got to understand. And you still see them every now and then. You'll see, some of those old players that have retired. They'll pop into different streams, or they'll pop in on the Discord, and they'll bag on new players, or they won't give anybody any credit, and they were the best when they played, and that's it, and yada yada yada. I'm just like, bro, you guys got to move on. I mean, your stick is done. Let's get on to something else. And so that's what we all want, to develop the game and develop more players. And people have been saying for years now, it's not being said near as much as it used to about the game kind of starting to diminish, and maybe the game's starting to die. It's not. Look at the Google searches. Look at how many new kingdoms are being popped up. Look at all the new Imperium kingdoms that are coming through. The game is very healthy, and they're making quality of life changes in the game that make it even better. They're helping younger players, assimilate to the end game. So they're doing all the right things, because to create and continue to add to and grow the game, you have to have new players. You have to. Exactly. And everybody's got to have a role. Whether you're a big time spender, mid spender, low spender, or free to play, you can have a great role in your kingdom. And I think they've done a pretty good job over the last 12 to 18 months of really focusing some things that help help the next generation of players along, because that is the future of the game. And so it's all community driven. Yeah. And that's how we always have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. No, 1,000%. And I don't think Lilith gets enough credit over the improvements that they've been making. And I'm sure someone's going to be in the comments saying, oh, well, they're not doing enough, and we still get transmutation stones when we go to the shop.
Yeah,
and it's like,
no, listen, they're not perfect. And I've done my fair share of complaining. But you've been around and you know gaming pretty well, Shappy, that they have done some things, even quite recently, that just quality of life is just so much easier. I mean, we've gotten rid of Zone 3 rogues in Home Kingdom with the banish skill. But there's all kinds of things they've done in the last 6 months or to a year that have really, really helped the game. And even as recent as the last update, they're doing some things that are just give you so much more quality of life. They really do. And so they're doing the right things. And I think it's part of that. It's because you get some different games that are coming out that are kind of like Rise of Kingdoms. Well, I'm a capitalist and I understand competition. And when other game developers and manufacturers are putting out games that compete with yours, that are in the same genre, you got to be better. It forces you to be better. Competition is what makes this thing better, and I love it. When a new game pops up that's kind of like Rise of Kingdoms, I love it because I know that the Rise of Kingdoms and the Lilith people are going to take it and be like, okay, we got to up our game. We got to make it better. We got to listen to our players. We got to figure out what's going to work. And it seems that they've been doing a much better job of that over the last year than maybe they did before. And so it definitely appears that way, that they're starting to listen to their community and really, acting on some of the things that the community is asking for.
Oh, 100%. I want to rewind back to something you were talking about. When you were saying how, you were with some older players and there was the whole no match found issue. That has been an issue for a couple people. Were you with Chisgule at that point? Because I know he's had that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, it was brutal. Dude, we went 9 KVK pops without a KVK.
Yeah, I remember
and it was so
watching
bad.
Some of his videos. I was like, is Chisgule going to quit?
Yeah, it was so, those of us who had multiple accounts and can at least go play a KVK somewhere else, you could bypass the time a little bit and pacify yourself. But overall, it was almost like we were the sacrificial lamb that really changed how they did things. And so when they put the domain system in, and when the kingdom started going smaller to 2 alliances and then 1 alliance kingdoms, and they did the things, they were just a little too late on it because they were allowing kingdoms to get so big. And the way their matchmaking worked out, they were keeping high ACs and low Imperiums away from mega Imperiums. And honestly, it's hard to make a balanced KVK with it, but that it's at least better to get into a KVK and try to make a balanced KVK than to just get no match found. I remember one time during one of the pops, we literally went in with 4 other Imperiums and we didn't get a match. And it was like, what is going on here? So it was very unfortunate, but it was almost like, 254 was one of the first guinea pigs of some of the developers trying to figure out exactly how they needed to plan a course of action of how to keep that from happening. And now they've done it, and it's much better. Every now and then you still get a no match found, but for the most part, they're doing a much, much better job. And I think part of that is the fact that kingdoms have shrunk. The Imperiums have come back to the fold, if you will, with some of the higher A seeds, where you can put 2 really good A seeds in a camp and go fight an Imperium, and be relatively even. So I think they've done the right things, and because oh my gosh, that was we were literally not logging in. Like, that's where it was. Like, Ruz had us all convinced that in Lilith's matchmaking, they identify activity and the daily chests that you get for being active. And it was like, hey, nobody's allowed to log in for 2 weeks before matchmaking.
You have to quit for 30 days.
Yes, we need you to quit playing the game to play the game. And we were just like, this is so ridiculous. Dysfunctional. Like, what are we doing? And so it's those are the links we would go to. That's how desperate we got to try to get into a KVK. So,
wow. That's wild. Tell us a little bit more. How did you and Chisgule meet? Because I've seen you in Chisgule's videos. I've seen Chizgule in your videos. I've seen Chizgule in your streams. And I don't know if you know how special you are. He doesn't do that to anyone.
Chiz was, when I was learning how to play the game, I was soaking up as much information as I could. Back in the day, Drago did a bunch of videos. Legend Ronnie was doing a bunch of videos and streaming a bunch of stuff. And even you had guys like Gecko that was doing a bunch. And oh gosh, there was another one that was also a really good one. But Chisgule was really developing his channel and really doing well with his guides and some of the stuff. So I started watching him a lot. I started, of course, supporting him and super chatting him and all that stuff. And I joined the Legendary Guard. And that way I had access to some of the guys that were in there, like Cortex and some of the people that were pretty good players and knew what they were doing. And that's where that relationship started. He was always trying to recruit me to 1075 where he was at. I was running the kingdom in 2080 with Peace. And so it finally got to a point to where we joined Smash Squad. We were going to go to 1075, but they had moved to 1254. And so we ended up joining them going to 1254. And I've been playing with Chisgule ever since. And so that's one of those things that, you know, he and I just have become friends, and I understand his business. I've given him good business advice when it comes to some of this stuff. And obviously he's got a high level of thinking because he in the corporate world, he was doing some pretty high level stuff. So he's a smart guy, and he and I have always got along pretty well, and kind of that whole community that we had. And so since then we've always kind of been playing, and you know, now I'm starting to channel everything. I'm looking at Chisgule and I'm like, is it good that we're in the same kingdom? Maybe we need to break up and not be in the same kingdom. And so, but we'll always be friends regardless of what happens. But he's always been really, really good, and a lot of fun to play with and helping each other out. And you know, back a long time, I'm not gonna say a long time ago, but just throughout Chisgule's development, you know, I would come up with these ideas and these different pairings and these different things to do, and test things out and find some things, and then he would go do a video about it. And he was always great. He'd always give me a lot of credit for it. So it just naturally made it easy when people were like, "Why don't you just do your own content? Like, you come up with this stuff. Like, why don't you just do it?" And because you're good and you got good proclamations, and so it made the transition for me to do content really, really easy.
Yeah. Have you had the lovely scenario that the rest of us have where you go to post a video and Chisgule posts all of 5 minutes later and your video completely
Yeah.
dies?
Well, I always, you know, it's funny because he's a different type of creator, right? He is more of the kind of the go-to. Anything drops in the game, patch notes drop in the game, new events drop in the game. He's one of the go-tos, right? And he does not only the guides and not only the entertainment of streaming, he's also kind of your, you know, breaking news guy, right? And and so that's not the content I really do. My stuff is more kind of the intricate things that go on. I try to really explain how some of the things that I apply to kind of your rock life, and how it works in the game for you. That's what I try to get. You know, if you're running these commanders, here's what you're going to get. You should try this. Or if you're tearing up your tier list for your awakenings, here's what you need to think about. Here's the gear you need to go with. Here's the rallies you need to try. Here, and that those are some of the guides that I like to do. And then entertainment wise, I love to get on stream and have a lot of energy and go nuts with it. But Chisco's kind of a whole, he's in the stratosphere. He's a whole different animal. So I've never like gotten patch notes and like gone and done a video about it, and then Chisco drops his video on patch. I've never been in that situation. The only time that's ever happened is when we rallied Baba the other day, and I'm sitting there recording it, and we're all on voice, and I'm like, Chisco, you gonna make a video about this? Because it's gonna get a lot of views. And he's like, yeah, maybe tomorrow. I was like, well, then I'm making one tonight.
Nice.
and so I put out like this little 3-minute video. I couldn't even get to a microphone, so it was a 3-minute video, and it just had some music overlaid on the back. And lo and behold, Chisco, we went ahead and did the video that night and put it out like 15 minutes after mine. And I was like, oh,
no.
GG, nice. But it's fine. It was totally cool. And but that's the stuff I really don't do. I don't really do the hey, there's a betrayal, or hey, somebody's getting zero. Let's go stream it real quick. That's not kind of my thing. You know, my thing is more just community based, guide based, and honestly, I'm kind of a certified nerd in the game. I carry that mantle, you know, proudly. I like being a nerd. I like getting into the numbers, understanding the mechanics of the game, and then being able to figure things out. My favorite thing to do is to try to figure something out in the game, and why a commander works or why they don't work, or why they might work with this other commander as a secondary. That's the kind of stuff I love to do.
So in that spirit, I do have a couple questions for you. I'll start with an easy one first. We know you're a Kraken, right? I think that's pretty much common knowledge.
Yeah. I would be a small Kraken compared to some of these guys that are in here. Some of your Fluffies and Babas. Yeah, Fluffies and Babas and Wild Lion and Mr. Hope and all them. But I'm the guy that I'm just always going to zero myself. I'm gonna train up to 250 million power, and then after KVK I'm 80 million power, and I'm just chilling. And so that's how I've always played. And so I've never had the luxury of sitting there and dumping troops on troops on troops and getting the 300 and 400 million power. I'm always killing them, and so
which is good, right? That mean you're not a dead weight Kraken. You're a productive Kraken, which I love. I have a fun one for you. Are there any commanders you don't have maxed? And I was just perusing through your video, and I think I noticed one.
Yes, I do not. I'm not an archer main, right? Now I love archers and I love playing with archers. But your archer rallies and garrisons, Dido and Henry, I do not have maxed. Gilgamesh, I do not have maxed. I have most infantry maxed. Now Tark is one I did not because I never had wedge sets for infantry. I was never going to be a Tark rally guy. But when it comes to cavalry, I got everything. When it comes to infantry, I almost have everything because I do a bunch of garrisoning.
Did I just
and then
hear
there's
that I have a commander maxed that Chadski does not?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I have Gilgamesh.
But I was never in the
biggest mistake.
I was never in. Yes, I was never in the collection game. That's never what I did. For instance, you know, when a Zenith comes out, and any Kraken will go get every Zenith. Okay, great. If it's a Zenith skin that I'm not going to use, then I'll bypass the Zenith. I'll hold my training, and I am pre-KVK training guy. That's what I do. I would rather do it for pre-KVK training, and help my kingdom with whatever rank they're trying to get, and it's more vanity than anything. If you win a Zenith, that's great. If you're ranked in the top 2 or 3 of a pre-KVK training, that's for everybody to see. And so that's how I've always kind of played. I've always trained objective based, if you will, and I've always played the game objective based. And so I'll go get kills. Don't get me wrong, but I love more of the objective style of it. It fits with what I do as a rally and garrison, and then I do the same thing in training, to where I don't just go collect commanders with MGs. I don't just go collect Zenith skins that I'm never going to use. I'm going to be as efficient as I can by trying to be a proper whale at the same time, and doing it to where, you know, you're not just, I'm not in love with troops. Actually, I hate troops. I don't like having troops. I'm the opposite. I can't wait to kill them all. And so it's that's how I've always played.
I love it. I think the most Kraken-y thing I saw you do, this was a stream I popped into of yours the other day, I'll link it on the top right side so folks can go watch it, was this armament event, which is an absolute scam. But hearing you go through that was the funniest thing I think I've ever seen. Because you're over here like, only 2,000 gems. It's an epic. Great. Cool. Scrap it.
When you get to a point that, and part of the reason why my account was always so unique is because I'm the arch guy, right? I've got arch everything for cavalry and infantry. I got all the special. I got 2 full sets of the special inscriptions, and I maxed out every bundle, daily, weekly, bi-weekly events, every bundle for probably the first 18 months of armaments. And part of the reason why was because I was running all the wedge stuff or the arch stuff, and it's like I couldn't stop. Once I got to a point to where they introduced smite commanders, I was probably the most beneficial with the value of my account as anybody, because I had all the arch stuff, right? And so when they came out with Smite Commanders, I'm like, GG, I'm in. I'm ahead of the game. And you know, I paid my dues because so many players and so many friends of mine, whether it's in Canyon or in the field fighting or whatever, they're hammering the wedge stuff. And when they do the wedge stuff, they all had like massive a massive head start on me because I never did, any of that stuff. And I always focused on the arch stuff. And so, yes, when it comes to armaments, just because now we have the wish list and now you have the shards that you get from the courier shop that gets you a special inscription, it's almost like it doesn't matter what event it is. And I don't even care if I get upgrades. Just give me the legendary armaments. I'll go recycle them, and it gives me one more chance to go to another level. So that's kind of how I've always viewed armament events.
Unless you end up with transmutation stones for your 180 legendary armaments, because that's not obnoxious or incredibly frustrating at all.
Yes, and I've paid my dues there too. I mean, I've still got stuff on my Attila that I've got an archer stat on there, and it drives me crazy. It absolutely drives me crazy. And so, yeah, they keep getting me with that hook, and I'll take all the transmutation crystals I can get.
I love it. So we're coming to the end here. The question that I want to ask is there anything that you really want to convey to the community, or anything that you're really looking forward to in the game that you want to see happen that Lilith maybe hasn't done, or things like that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, The community is everything with the game. It's absolutely everything. I don't like it toxic. I love kind of dark humor. I think that's funny. Um, but trolls can get out of hand a little bit. Lost Kingdom chat's always kind of entertaining, but you get some crazy stuff in there, and it goes over the line sometimes. But more than anything, I don't like the toxic community. And I always like to keep the community positive and having a good time with it. I mean, we're not doing brain surgery on toddlers here. We're playing a mobile game. Out loud. So how serious do you want to take it? But I get it. People take it very seriously because they put a lot of money into it. And so that's, the community is always the most important thing to me, no matter where you're playing. And that's why, like, I jumped into your kingdom's Discord server. I'm in all kinds of Discord servers, just because like getting to know people from other kingdoms. I'll never go there sometimes, it'll never be a place of a destination, but I love to get to know people and let them know me. But the one thing I think Lilith needs to do, if I could do one thing in the game, just one thing, that I think Lilith needs to do, it either has to do with shortening the length of your KVKs, from 50 days to maybe 30 or 28 days, or give us the option to do what I would call KVK grudge match, right? And it's basically like you pick a kingdom, they agree to fight you, you agree to fight them. You don't even care about the power, you don't care about the kill points. It's us versus you, both kings agree, and you do a kind of a mini KVK. You start out in zone 4, you fight the other kingdom for zone 5, you go into zone 6, and you immediately go into a Kingsland. I mean, and it takes like 14 days. And you it's cool. A miniature. It would be so much fun, bro. And the rewards don't have to be as extensive as a full KVK, but you can still have good rewards. And maybe you don't get a full autark, but if you fight in the KVK and you're the top 10, they'll give you an autark, or the winning side will get like a half a shard of an autark, or some of the fragments that they give or something like that. Anyways, you set it up however you need to set it up, and it allows kingdoms to go into KVK, fight whoever they want in a shortened KVK. You do a week build up, you run it for 14 days, you do a kind of a condensed crystal tech, if you will, and you just let people go ham, and you let one kingdom get after it with another. And you can do different formats, and you can make a really small map, like basically just like, hey, one zone 5 you fight for, and then you go fight a Kingsland. You do it however you want to do it.
That'd be cool. That would also help with these KVK
so
betrayals that I just saw with TL68. Omniarch's Kingdom, that whole big deal. You could have a grudge match.
I mean, and that stuff, if you want to, you call it a grudge match, or, you can, like, because right now, 2377 is loaded, right? We just fought in their KVK. They were our allies. They're probably the only ones that could go toe-to-toe with 960 in the field. We're watching 960, and 2489, they're doing great in the KVK right now. But 960 is overwhelming. I mean, they just are. And it's almost like, so those two kingdoms like have to talk to one another. They got to get on cycle with one another. They got to make sure they're both, charged up and ready to go as far as, the what's in their bags, their speed ups, and, how drained the kingdoms are. And then they've got to go queue into a KVK, wait for the allies. Then they got to go try to match up the allies to make it even. And it's just like, there's a lot of work that goes into that. And I give all those kings credit to do that. But wouldn't it just be easier to say 2377 and 960, hey, you guys can go fight a 1v1 KVK. It's going to be a 3-week long deal. You get it done, and then you can get your kingdom back on cycle in another way. And I think that would just be a really easy kind of a mini KVK format to where you could literally watch 1v1s. And that gets some of the trash talking out of it, because it's just like, oh, put your money where your mouth is. Let's go fight a 1v1 and find out who wins. And there's no excuses. You don't have anybody to blame.
We're taking it back to Call of Duty 2005. 1v1 me, bro.
Yes, absolutely. So that's, I think that would be the one thing I would love in the game. I'd absolutely love that. I think it would be great. I think it would be fun. I think a lot of people would do it. You could set up tournaments with it, with kingdoms. You could do like a 4-team tournament or an 8-team tournament with it, like, and you could just do that inherently. You could have KVK tournaments that might last a year, but you're going to go 3 weeks, and then you got a month off. Then you go another 3 weeks for a quarterfinal, month off, and then the semifinals, then a month off, and then you go to your finals. You could do all kinds of fun stuff with that.
So you think the possibilities for ROK are endless, it sounds like. I like your
Mhm.
optimism. Everyone else is like the game's dying, and you're like, no, there's so much potential here.
No. Are you seeing how many people are signing up? Like, here's what's crazy. I'll just say this. I still have my alt in 2605. It's chilling. I'm the only main account there. Everybody else has just got, farms over there. I queue into a KVK and I'm in a camp with like 10 other kingdoms in a D-seed KVK. And I'm in there. None of them use Discord. These are all players and people that are running these kingdoms, and everything is in the game. All their communication is in the game. And I've had more fun in those KVKs because it's not near as competitive. And what people have to understand is that we live in a competitive environment. Your A seeds, high A seeds and Imperiums, we live in our little bubble of competitive, Rise of Kingdoms. The community that does not live in that bubble of competitive KVKs and competitive kingdoms is like 5 times the size of the competitive community. It's so massive how many people play this game. And a lot of them transition into being competitive and playing competitive and doing all the things. But a lot of people just stay in those and they do their city building and they have fun with the game and they go out and fight. And it was like, yeah, that was okay. And that was fun. And I would go fight those KVKs and I'm just like, you guys have a Discord. They're like, what's a Discord? And I'm like, oh, great. And they're like, oh, you're Chadski. Here, you take R5. I'm like, no, I'm not taking R5 of your kingdom. They're like, no, you help us build. And I'm just like, oh, okay, well, let's figure this out. But it's so much fun. And people they forget that this community is so massive. It is so huge. And there's a massive casual community out there that's 5 times larger than our competitive community in this game. And it's crazy. It is nuts.
That's wild. Well, thank you so much, Chadski. This has been amazing. For everyone who made it to this point in the video, first off, thank you. If you haven't already, drop a like on it. And check out Chadski's channel. I'm going to link that right above my head. You can go check him out. Subscribe to him. He's grown incredibly fast. And it sounds like it's because he actually makes really good content. It's not just because he's Chisgule's friend. For everyone who said that.
Oh, right. Oh, there you go. But I appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words. Oh,
I love it. Well, thank you, Chadski. Thank you all.
All right, buddy.
Shappy out.